Hello. How are you
Hi,
going?
I am great, and it's great to see you.
It's great to see you as well. So I'm Jessica DeWitts. I'm one of the editors here at the Network in Canadian History and Environment. I'm joined by one of our newest editors, Lori Lee Oates. Do you want to tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm an instructor in the Humanities and Social Science faculty at Memorial University in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Mhm.
And I'm trained as an imperial historian originally at the University of Exeter
Mhm.
in the United Kingdom. But my most recent research focuses on things like ecofeminism and oil and masculine identity in Newfoundland and Labrador, and how climate change is a manifestation of modern imperialism.
Awesome. Yeah. So all of that is so cool. I love the mixture of gender studies and environmental history, and I often wish that I had spent more time in grad school learning about that stuff. But I guess that's what the rest of my life is for.
That's right.
But um, in December, you published a blog post with us called "Climate Change is Colonialism." So that's what we're going to be chatting a little bit about today. And I thought I'd start off the bat with talking about what do you mean when you say that climate change is colonialism?
Well, when I say that, what I'm talking about is the fact that climate change is rooted in imperial ways of thinking and imperial economic patterns that were
Mhm.
established, certainly in the 19th century, but arguably even as a manifestation of early modern colonialism. And we saw that on full display at COP26 when we saw nations from the global south. Particularly, I think some of the most compelling speeches came from Barbados, Uganda, Kenya, talking about how they're suffering some of the worst impacts of climate change. But they're not the worst emitters in the world. The worst emitters in the world are
Mhm.
your kind of northern hyper-capitalist industrialized nations. And this is a global problem right now, and we need global solutions to address that. But we're trying to do it through institutions, like the United Nations, which was forged in a period of, some would argue a period of decolonization, but decolonization increasingly looks like just, another form of imperialism. And the countries that we frequently blame the most have some of the lowest per capita emissions. Like
Mhm.
climate deniers like to focus on China and India, which they argue contribute significantly to global emissions because they have large populations, but their per capita emissions are actually quite a bit lower than countries like Canada and the United States. So they're using, coal-powered electricity for families to have electricity, whereas
Mhm.
here in the industrialized North, we're using our emissions for things like private jets, right?
Mhm.
And one of the things I cite in the article is that there's record purchases of private jets right now.
Yeah, yeah, and a way of avoiding the also in COVID, I've read that more people, rich people are buying these jets, yeah, right, to avoid, flying with groups of people and what a privilege that is. Yeah. And this discussion also reminds me of like the difference between Anthropocene and Capitalocene, and how there's like a bot on Twitter where every time you use the word Anthropocene, they like correct you and put Capitalocene, um, because it's not everyone not every human that has contributed to this, which I think speaks to this idea of climate change as colonialism. Um, so you focus a lot on the fossil fuel industry in this post.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought we could discuss about how the modern fossil fuel sector is connected to colonialism and imperialism.
Yes, and I rely on one of my favorite historians to make that connection, who is Corey Ross, who teaches at the University of Birmingham. And he published this really excellent book, one of my favorite books, called Ecology and Power in the Age of Empire. and he talks about the rise of coal and petroleum as imperial legacies. So coal is this 19th century legacy. Of course, coal becomes really important uh, when we industrialize, and we need it for railroads and steamships. And of course, those are infrastructures that were used to help colonize the world. And then as we move into the 20th century, we see the rise of petroleum,
Hmm.
because, Ross makes the case that it's more fluid, it's easier to move, and an even more concentrated form of energy. So then it becomes really important around the time of the First World War. And then after the First World War is over, the imperial powers kind of carve up the Middle East,
Hmm.
for their own petroleum needs. And the legacy of that is we've continued to fight wars in the Middle East over petroleum. And one of the benefits, honestly, of moving to renewables is that we don't have to fight wars over petroleum anymore.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I remember, I didn't really know that much about, the history of the US or other Western countries in the Middle East until grad school, really, and how illuminating that was. And I remember reading, the Middle East as being treated as the new American frontier and resource cultivation. And yeah,
The,
it's
la-
so,
the
it's
language of
so,
imperialism.
yes, yes, exactly. Um, yeah, it's so critical to understanding the place that we are at now, and decentering decentering our trying to think of the word I'm going for here. Maybe decentering isn't the right word, but just, we kind of think of this as that we're all in this together. I'm kind of thinking of the reception to the Don't Look Up movie as well, that people are looking at. It kind of treats the United States as like the epicenter, but that everyone's in it together, but that's not really how it is, right? Um,
And can I say that as a woman who does public scholarship on
mhm.
climate change and oil subsidies and the imperialism of climate change, I found Jennifer Lawrence's character way too relatable.
Yes, I agree. I agree. I was like, oh yeah, that feels about right. um, yeah, so we as historians or scholars in general, we write about this stuff publicly because we want to make a difference. So I wanted to talk to you at the end here just to pick your brain about what you think are some of the steps that we need to do to move forward in this era of climate crisis.
Well, it can't be renewables for the South and continue pumping for the North, right? That
Mm-hmm.
absolutely can't happen. Like we all need to move off fossil fuels, and the sooner the better, right? We need to listen to scientists. Like in 2019, 11,000 scientists signed on to research in Bioscience Journal from
Mm-hmm.
Oxford, which stated unequivocally that we're in a climate emergency, and here are the 6 steps we need to take to address this emergency. So we need governments to start listening to scientists,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to stop subsidizing oil. We're the network in Canadian history and environment. So, Canada is one of the worst offenders from a per capita emissions perspective. So we need to stop subsidizing the fossil fuel sector. Canada is also one of the worst offenders in terms of subsidizing fossil fuels,
Yeah.
right? The International Monetary Fund has found that Canada puts $60 billion annually into subsidizing fossil fuels. And we need to expand our understanding of what subsidies look like. Subsidies also look like paying to um, address fires and climate emergencies and floods and the healthcare costs of putting emissions into the environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
we
Okay.
need to we need to invest in renewables.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a big part of the government plan right now for doing that is mega hydro projects, which of course there's also lots of scholarship on how those are examples of modern colonialism. And
Mm-hmm.
we need to support oil workers in transitioning, because there's research that shows that oil workers actually want to transition to working in renewables. And we need to make oil companies, pay for cleaning up their own orphan wells. And, we need to treat this like the code red for humanity it is, and build the institutions and provide the funds for a just transition now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, those are great points. And I think this whole conversation today is just underlines how critical it is to understanding these long-term structural systems that have been shaping us for a very long time and continue to. Like it's all on a continuum, right? We're all connected, and through this system that has reached its fingers globally. Um, and we have to think about that. We have to think about these historical origins if we're going to be thinking about how we undo them or move to what's next. So I want to thank you for writing about it, and it was really well received, and
Good.
it's getting some notice, and yeah, I look forward to seeing what else you bring to the table for us, and welcome you aboard.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, thank you for joining us today, Lori.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, take care.
You too.